The second Mishna in the second Perek of Pirkei Avot begins, Rabbi Gamliel beno shel Rabbi Huda Hanasi Omer, Yafet Talmud Torah im derech eretz, sheyigia shneim mishkachas avon. It is very nice for a person to study Torah and also have a worldly occupation, a job, sheyigia shneim mishkachas avon. Because by pursuing both, a person, there'll be no sin. Sin will be forgotten. The word derech eretz refers to a work because it's the natural part of the way of the world to work in order for a person to sustain himself. It's the derech eretz. It's how nature operates. And by doing both together, a person roots out sin. You might say that you root out sin by having no time left, by learning Torah. People who go to work all day, learn Daf Yomi at night, just have no time for sin, possibly. Or what it means is that there's a holistic situation when a person could have these two dimensions in his life, working according to the natural way of the world, and also studying Torah and driving one's life by the values of Torah. That will remove sin. If a person only studies Torah but never works and relies on being sustained in some magical ways, so it might work, might not work. And like Chazal say, anyone who doesn't teach his child a job teaches him to be a thief, because ultimately a person becomes desperate to sustain himself and his family, and if there's no derech eretz, that could lead to sin. And conversely, if a person is only pursuing money in the natural way, but doesn't have a moral compass and a value system that's driving and framing his life, then that he could become consumed with more and more accumulation of wealth and will therefore be tempted to sin. But if there's a value system that's driving him, and it's done in a healthy way where there's a derech eretz that will sustain him, then he could be protected potentially from sin. Second teaching is Kol Torah she'eni ma'malacha sofa b'teila v'goreres avon. This seems actually very similar to the first teaching. Any Torah that does not have with it work will ultimately be neglected and cause sin. Here, the word malacha might mean the same thing as derech eretz, in which case what it's saying is that not only does the neglect of work ultimately cause sin, it itself will be batel. The Torah itself won't be sustained. The person won't be able to, if he only focuses on learning and not on work, then not only will there be a problem, but the Torah itself will be neglected in the end. The word malacha maybe means something different. Maybe it means working at your learning, that the Torah has to have work. A person who finds it easy to learn and doesn't really work hard at his learning, the learning itself won't be enriching, even if he has a lot of talents. The next teaching, a person who works for the tzibor, with the tzibor, for the tzibor, should do it l'shem shamayim, should do it for the sake of heaven. Here, why does the Mishna have to tell us l'shem shamayim? Isn't it obvious that a person, why else would he work for the community, if not for the sake of heaven, for the pure reasons? Secondly, we don't say this about anything else. It seems that the Mishna is telling us that specifically with communal work, although it seems obvious that a person would be motivated for the pure intentions, there are ulterior motives that can seep in without realizing. It could be that a person is really pursuing recognition, feeling of control over others, control over the community. There could be other motives that exist, and a person who is working for the community has to be thoughtful about making sure that his work is pure. And the phrase continues, "Shezuchus avosam misayasan v'titkasam omedes la'ad," because the merit of their forefathers supports them, and their righteousness is sustaining. And for you, people who are working today on behalf of the community, I give you the reward as if you did that which your ancestors did. And what I think that the this point is saying is that the community has a schus avos. The founders of the community did their work for the community, and that's a merit. And the foundations that they built exist and carry on to generations to come, and are messiah and support those who come later to work for the community. If the those who their time today are doing l'shem shamayim, then they're able to tap in to all the zchuyos of their ancestors or the founders of that community. But the sort of like you're carrying a lot on your shoulders because you're carrying all the schus avos of everyone that came before you. And if you are working l'shem shamayim, you get all the merits that came before. But be careful that it's always l'shem shamayim. The third Mishnah of this Perek says, Havu zehirim b'rishus, the person should always be careful with the authorities. She'ein mekarven lo la'adam elo l'tzorach atzma. Because the authorities, they only want to be close to you for their own personal advantage. Nirin ka'ohavim b'sha'as hana'asam. They seem like they love you when it suits them. Vein omdim lo la'adam b'sha'as dachko. But when you need them, they're not there for you. And this Mishnah seems to be down on our relationship with ruling authorities, but it's not as bad as the previous Perek, which said Altit vadal v'shus, don't have anything to do with them. Here it says Havi zehirim b'rishus, and I think this Mishnah is just explaining sort of common sense that you should be careful and understand their motives. They're motivated by self-interest, so you could. This is actually arguing with the earlier Mishnah. You could have a relationship with the authority, but you should understand that they're not your best friend. They're there for you to the extent that you're there for them. And there's a potentially mutually beneficial relationship. But you should recognize that it's not pure love. It's not ava she'ena tluya b'davar. If you could campaign for somebody and then they'll help you, that's how it works. But if it doesn't suit them, they might not be there for you. And the Mishnah is giving us just an understanding, know what they're motivated by before you enter your relationship with them. And then it could be really potentially mutually beneficial.